Greetings, comrades of questionable loyalty. Today we're talking about the dramatic, pathetic, and somehow hilarious death of Joseph Stalin, the man who built a superpower, destroyed millions of lives, and still managed to die in a puddle of his own pee. Let's dive in. So, it's 1953. The Soviet Union is huge, terrifying, and being micromanaged by a guy who looks like Mario's evil uncle, Stalin. Stalin, 74 years old, has the diet of a chimney and trusts about three things: himself, vodka, and possibly the floor. He's still technically in charge, but his body is checked out and his brain's on paranoia overdrive.
No! God, please, no!
At this point, he's purged half of his government, executed most of his friends, and probably has nightmares about somebody moving his teacup slightly to the left. Now, let's talk about his final weekend, because it's a masterpiece of awkward tragedy. It's March 1st, 1953. Stalin's at his dasha, basically his luxury prison in the woods. That night he has a little dinner party with his inner circle. Lavrenti Beria, head of the secret police and walking red flag. Georgy Malenkov, professional yes man, and Nikita Khrushchev, future leader and current brown-noser. They drink heavily, watch a movie, laugh at jokes no one finds funny actually, but it's okay, and probably condemn a few innocent people for fun. You know, standard Friday night for a totalitarian paradise. Around 4 a.m. Stalin tells everyone to go home and heads to bed. His guards, trained to obey his every word, lock up and wait for the next command. Spoiler, not coming. Morning passes, afternoon rolls by, still no signs of him. Normally, that'd be concerning, but when your boss has a habit of executing people for being annoying, you don't check in. The guards are terrified. One finally says, "Comrade, should we wake him?" The other one goes, "Do you like being alive?" And that settles it. By 10 p.m., p.m., somebody finally gets brave or stupid enough to open the door. Inside, they find Stalin lying on the floor, half conscious, soaked in urine, and gasping for breath. It's pretty clear something's wrong, but this is the Soviet Union, where doing your job can also get you executed. So instead of calling for help, they just stare, for hours. Eventually, word reaches Beria and the others. They rush in, take one look at Stalin, twitching in the carpet, and go, "Oh yes, very concerning,"
Anyway,
before leaving again. Beria tells the guards not to panic, saying Stalin is just sleeping, which is technically true if you count brain hemorrhage as naps, but what you gonna do? Here's where it gets even darker. Stalin had spent the past few years purging Soviet doctors. He's recently launched something called Doctor's Plot, accusing Jewish physicians of trying to poison Soviet leaders. So most of the country's competent doctors were either dead, imprisoned, or too scared to show up. When the guards finally convinced someone to examine him, nearly a full day later, Stalin was barely alive. His face was paralyzed, his speech was gone, and his right side didn't work. Basically, his body finally realized who it was working for and quit in protest. The doctors that did come were terrified. Imagine being told, "Hey, go treat the guy who kills people for bad diagnosis." They tried everything. Bloodletting, leeches, injections, the finest 18th century medicine available in the 20th century. At this point, they applied cold compresses and mustard plasters, which might as well have been some sort of voodoo at that point. Of course, none of it worked. For 4 days, Stalin wheezed, convulsed, and occasionally glared at everyone in the room like he was trying to murder them telepathically. Eyewitnesses said he even raised his arm at one point, as if to point at someone, but then just froze mid the gesture. No one knew if he was accusing someone, reaching for help, or just trying to swat the death away. Either way, it didn't work. On March 5th, 1953, at 9:50 p.m., Joseph Stalin finally died. Officially, the cause was cerebral hemorrhage. Unofficially, it was cosmic irony. When the news broke, the USSR went full meltdown. State radio announced the death in a trembling voice, and people lost it. Crowds filled the street, crying hysterically. Some out of genuine grief, some because they realized they might actually get shot for not crying hard enough. The funeral was chaos. Moscow was flooded with hundreds of thousands of mourners trying to see the body. In fact, a few hundreds were actually trampled to death, meaning Stalin managed to kill people after he died. That's a weird achievement. You can't buy that kind of consistency. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, Beria and the others were already scheming over who'd take control next. Beria even bragged later that he took Stalin out, though historians aren't sure if he meant poisoning or just letting nature do the paperwork. Either way, karma didn't wait long. Beria himself got executed within the year, Circle of Life, Soviet edition. After that, Khrushchev eventually took over and started the process of de-Stalinization, which basically meant pretending the guy who built half your country wasn't also a genocidal maniac. It took years for the Soviet Union to finally admit, maybe all that mass terror wasn't ideal. So that's how one of the most powerful men in history died. Not in battle, not by assassination, but because everyone around him was too scared to help. He built a system of fear so strong that it literally outlived him. Moral of the story? Don't purge your doctors, don't build a government of paranoia, and maybe treat your subordinates like humans, because someday they might be the only ones standing between you and a puddle of your own dignity. Thanks for watching, like, subscribe, or I might personally send you to the gulag. Nah, just kidding. Probably.